So, my dear friends, today what's happening in our profession is something very, very interesting and fascinating. Why do I say that? It is because of the pace at which it is taking place, right? So, therefore, today I'm going to take you through this interesting session on use of AI and emerging technology in our profession. Predominantly speak about AI and other aspects, right? And give you some practical use cases of how this is being done with the help of a chat GPT or any of those tools. I'm not going to spend too much time on myself. I think all of you know. But quickly, I'm a practicing chartered accountant, specialized in technology, and that's been an interesting space where I've been doing a lot of work. Disclaimer, all the tools and other applications, whatever I'm using is purely from a knowledge and educational perspective and not from an endorsement or any other standpoint. So I'll speak about, high level, these four broad things, right? What is AI and what is the introduction or, a quick lookout into an introduction to AI. Future of jobs, right? What's happening to the future of jobs? And very interestingly, just yesterday or day before yesterday, I think on April 30th or May 1st, the World Economic Forum released the Future of Jobs report 2023, very huge document. Let me see what I'm able to summarize and share some insights from that, right? Future of jobs and, with AI coming in. What are these AI tools which are very easy for us to get started and how do I use them, right? And how do I gear up for the future? What is it that I can get started from a future point, right? How do I get started? So first things first, let's spend some time to understand AI. And I'm not going to give you a theory about AI and other things, rather see how AI is being predominantly used, right? In a layman's language, it's all about a system that can simulate a human being. Something like a human being, it can help you to do it, right? It's a task of asking the computer to do certain things. The general way in which a computer system works is that you have a data or you have a program, you give it to a computer and the computer generates an output. In the case of an AI, you have a data and output, and the computer generates the program or the logic. That means you use the AI to solve a particular problem or to give you a solution, given this is the data, given some information, etc., etc. Right? Now, with this as the context, what we are going to do is let's spend some time to discuss. Of course, I'm not going to talk about what is machine learning, all of those things. I want to go more on the practical side of these things, and that's where I want to spend some time. This is something which is very interesting, which I noticed, and I think it is worthy to spend some time to understand. AI technology, which is the building blocks. What is it that AI can do? At the end of the day, AI broadly is bucketed under these things. It can analyze data and give you some results. It can process or it can take an action, right? Now, when you say data, you are basically asking the system to analyze certain things and give an output. Let's talk about a machine vision. It is able to help us detect faces, objects, etc. A simplest thing what is used is the machine learning or the AI which is built into our phones, which can recognize our face and say, hey, acceptable, not acceptable. A very, very, very basic version of it, right? Of course, it has been trained with only some small sets of data with your own face and things like that, right? But probably a little larger things could be what these social media websites were having, where it could have an image of you and your friend, and it says, hey, tag this as you, tag this as another person. That's a very simple thing, and that's called as a machine vision. Ability of a machine to identify. It's like a small child. When the child is born, after a few months or after a few, weeks, I would rather use the word few months, right? 2 to 3 months at least. The child is able to identify a person's face. Until then, the child is not able to see it. So it's basically getting trained. On the other end, you have something called as a speech recognition. When you speak, your voice is being understood. But please bear in mind, the way I speak vis-a-vis the way you speak, the way somebody else in a different country speaks is absolutely different. And that's where speech recognition is such a huge area which people are still getting into. And you'll be surprised that sometimes my home Alexa does not understand what I say, but it clearly understands what my 3 or 4 year old son says in terms of playing Baba Black Sheep or nursery rhymes or whatever it is, right? So speech recognition, right? It is able to transform whatever word I'm speaking into text. And there are very many tools available in our disposal. Of course, the tool and other practical use cases of that, I'll speak about it. I'll talk about small things, of course, give the hype of ChatGPT and speak about the other tools as well. Then you have natural language processing. Now, the natural language processing is basically ability to detect the intent of a text-based command. This is an extension of speech recognition, and this is by far the best use case which I have noticed when it comes to speech recognition. Because when I say a particular aspect, saying that the system or somebody else who does not know it may understand in a different context, but interpreting in the way and the fashion it has to be done is where is very, very important. Let's take an example. I say, play a song titled so and so. Let's say, that play song of Pushpa, which is, known for, having a lot of these beats and all of those things. Now, my Alexa will understand Pushpa movie and it will play the song. But the challenge is, Pushpa movie was released, I think, in 3 or 4 languages. English, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada. I'm not sure if it was released in Malayalam, definitely in Hindi. How do I know which language I need to play it? Now, this is where it understands the background and my intent. Let's say I've been used to listening to Hindi, and I say play songs of the new movie Pushpa, it will link through those and it is able to naturally process that, go based on the intent, right? So this is just one use case which I'm talking about. There could be hundreds of other different use cases where your wordings and somebody else's wordings, the way in which it is spoken, etc., it is able to understand, right? I'll give you another example. You simply tell Alexa, hey, increase the volume. How does it know how much to increase the volume? Increase the volume could be like 3x, 5x, or you could give a percentage, or you could say increase the volume by 1 unit, 2 unit, right? So it is able to understand those things, right? That's where your natural language. But let's come to processing. This is, I think, something very, very significant. Information processing, creation of graph, construction, search, all of this is where it is making heavy use, and this is where ChatGPT is also extensively used. It is processing, right? It's processing. It is learning from the data. A classical example of learning from the data is a car, a Tesla car, which is sort of driving. It knows where the objects are. It knows how to follow. It knows what the rule. It's a combination of a machine vision coupled with processing. Okay, I see some people walking on the road, and therefore I need to stop behind. I see a red signal, and therefore processes. But that doesn't mean that somebody in front, I see that red color dot sort of a thing, or the red color rear lights of a car, and therefore I think it's a signal. No, right? It has to learn from it. And planning and exploring agents and objects, as and when you move, you understand these roads are peak traffic, these roads are lesser traffic, and that's what the feed which goes to Google Maps, and that's what you see. On the other side, you have action oriented. Image generation. There are tools today which is available which says, hey, generate an image of Superman who is going to work as an accountant in an office, right? And it'll basically generate that for you, right? Modifying faces, of course, it can create funny faces, it can create all of those things, but this, of course, used on the negative side as well. But I firmly believe on speaking on technology from a positive aspect, and therefore I'll always focus only on the positive elements, right? Speech recognition, virtual assistant, controlling the objects. This is by far the most difficult thing, but it is actually taking place. Where Boston Robotics, right, is one such organization exclusively working on this particular space as to how objects can be lifted, moved, and things like that, right? And navigation and movement, these are all action. But if you look into our own profession, at the end of the day, these three are invariably coming into it, right? As auditors, we analyze data, we will have to interpret the numbers, we'll have to take transactions, and here we have a few set of tools which can probably, a few set of things which AI can help us achieve. So, what are or where is AI typically today used in business? And I broadly think these are the five, universe of categories, if I have to put it, right? I don't see any other major things other than these five broad things. First is automating. Something is repetitive, you're asking the same thing year after the other. Hey, boss, go ahead and automate it. AI is used for that. Of course, many people speak of RPA, is RPA automation and things like that. It's actually a different thing. RPA is basically a process-based approach. Step 1, step 2, step 3, which without you coming into picture, the system doesn't. Whereas AI is an element of intelligence. That means an RPA works on a rule-based system, not an intelligent-based system. So if something new RPA comes across something new, it will stop processing because it does not know what to do. Whereas AI on the other end will think on similar lines and go ahead and process that, right? So that's where an AI comes into picture, right? So detecting that. Third, personalizing. This is something very, very important. This is very, very important, right? Personalization is something which is very crucial. Why? See, today, when we talk about systems, when we talk about all of these things, everybody wants certain things to be sold at the end of the day. Marketing, right? You're talking about a lot of these technologies, you're talking about Amazon, Flipkart, fancy websites, all of those things. But at the end of the day, what are they doing? They're trying to sell you something. What is the Netflix trying to do? It's trying to entertain you with something. So there is an element of entertainment, there's an element of these sort of requests which is there, right? When it comes to this scenario, personalizing AI actually is been very helpful in this particular space, right? The advertisements or the feeds which you get in your Netflix or YouTube is not the same what your friend gets. Forget that. Those of you using Instagram generation, you have an option called Reels. You're swiping the Reels. The Reels what you get is not the same what your friend may probably get. Forget about your friend. It's not even the same what your spouse will get, right? And then comes obviously predicting, trying to understand what your behavior could be, trying to understand if given this scenario, where will you head into? Right? And not to forget understanding the behavior character. So if you see broadly, these are the 5 domains under which it would operate, right? But given this context, given these 5 applications of business, let us see how this is coming into each of these buckets and how this is evolved, right? If you go into the era of 1960s, 1980s, these are all mainframe computers, which is called as the Industrial Revolution 1.2. Then came the concept of client server architecture, widespread PC, right? And I'm sure, those professionals who are in the 90s, right? You would have sensed that, hey, computers are making a big buzz and a lot of those things, right? In the 2020s, I think mobile and data became the interesting things. Of course, cloud was one of the things which was evolving that time. Today's cloud is historical. Everybody lives on the cloud in terms of technology usage. And the 2010 onwards, we call it as the era of intelligent technology. And especially post-COVID, this has only increased. And ever since 2022, with the era of generative AI coming into mainstream, OpenAI, ChatGPT, whatever you can call it, right? I think the era of new practices are coming in. Right? So that's why we call the era of intelligence, era of AI, right? And that is where we are actually currently situated. Now, people always ask me, sir, in this AI-based era, should I learn programming? Should I learn this? Should I learn that? Hang on. We'll speak about all of those things, right? It need not be that, you need to know programming. You need to know how to use that. And I always share this as one constant reminder and example. In the 1930s, when the motor car was invented, there was a huge havoc. People protesting, saying, no, motor car will take away our jobs. And who are these people protesting? These were all those people who knew how to ride a tonga or a horse carriage. So they knew if a motor car comes in, the role of a horse or a horse carriage, right, or a horse, a maintenance or a driver of a horse carriage, whatever you can call it, right? These people are going to become redundant. Obviously, they start protesting. What did eventually happen? Few protests took place, but what is the end result? Those guys learned how to drive a car. As simple as this. It's like you and me. We have a car. We know how to drive it. Should there be a repair? Maybe one or two very basic checks we can do, but we can't go beyond it. We'll bring that mechanic into the picture. That's exactly what I'm trying to refer. AI is a technology which we need to adapt. We need to know what it can help us, what are its limitations. But we need not, I repeat, we need not learn programming. If you are doing it, that's an added advantage. I'm not bringing that into the matter at all, right? There are so many other technological or data analysts, there are so many data scientists, there's so many AI engineers who are actually doing the job. Our job is to see how we can use that to solve a problem or a use case, and that's what we are referring to, right? And this is one of my favorite examples. I'm not sure if you have heard me speak on this. At least the Bangalore chapter, I don't think I've spoken on this example. Intelligence, which is there everywhere. This is a very interesting use case, and I think I took this snippet from one of the presentation made by one of these companies. I'm not able to recollect. This very interesting document talks about how data is available and how AI is used, or how images are generated. So there was this company who wanted to issue loans, and they wanted to go in a tier 3 or a tier 4, or the rural market. So obviously, the first question which a person granting a loan will ask is, do you have a credit history? And it is expected that in the rural, they may probably have never borrowed, or they may not have used a credit card. So where is the question of probably, I said, right? They may not have this sort of a data. Now you are here who wants to issue loans or credit to an unbanked sector, but you obviously have to cover your risk. And there is a huge opportunity for you because there is nobody who's actually taken a loan there, or the non-banking financial companies have not penetrated, or banks are not issuing the loans, and therefore you feel that there's a huge market. But how do I analyze the potential? And this is where what they did was they analyzed with the help of geospatial data, where they took the photo of a Google map, right? There is the terrain view, satellite view, and other things. One of those images, right? And they converted each part of the data into a particular thing. If it was green fields, right? They said, okay, it could be cultivated land. So let's give it a color code. In this case, they have given, let's say, a color code of orange, right? If it is, let's say, something to do with where people are staying, we'll give a color code of blue. If there are houses, we'll give them a color code of red. If there is a road, we'll give them a color code of green. And if there is a school, hospital, like that, they try to do a lot of things. And they try to define what is called as a prosperity index. Very interesting use case, prosperity index. So they came up with 121 odd signals in the images. Width of the road, canal with water, canal without water, shapes of building, and what not. And with all of this, they created a prosperity index and identified if these 10 or 20 parameters are there, that means this village is prosperous. And therefore, it makes sense for me to lend there, because I still know the village is prospering, and therefore people will have the ability for them to repay. Very interesting use case. See how data is being used. Another interesting use case I'll talk about, this is where companies like Swiggy and Zomato actually did, right? What they did during the pandemic period is they wanted to identify if their delivery, they do. It is very difficult, right? I am sitting at home and working, delivery agent is going and executing. I can't sit and go behind every delivery agent. So what they did was, whenever the delivery agent was looking into the Google Maps, right, with their consent, of course, certain images were taken to check whether this gentleman was wearing a mask or not. And as a part of it, they checked whether this particular region was covered or not. Some of them are covered, some of them are not covered, some of them put a handkerchief. So they decided which of these images is an acceptable image, non-acceptable image. Some of them, when they were looking into it, they kept their hand. They said, no, this hand initially said it is covered, but it was not acceptable. Right? So they came up with a lot of those interesting things, and that is where their AI system or algorithm evolved. Which means we are talking about AI which can solve certain problems or analyze data, segment the data, take decisions, whatever it is, with the help of some data which is available. Where there is no data, it becomes very difficult for it to analyze, right? But then comes the era of GPT, which is generative AI, where it can give you output based upon certain set of instructions, and that's where AI is going a new dimension, right? So if you see broadly, AI would probably, go into these broad domains: machine learning, ability of a machine to learn; deep learning, predictive analytics. Then you have NLP, natural language processing, classification, clustering, extraction; AI based, text to speech, speech to text, right? And computer vision, robotics, expert systems and things, right? And this is where our accounting knowledge, etc., is basically used by the machine to analyze certain transactions much better. Now, given this scenario, given this particular context or scenario, right? Now, what is it that has evolved, or what are these concepts which is actually being used today? Is the AI is a very, very broad bucket, right? It is basically using, or it is a very, very high level, which talks about a macro, an umbrella. But within that umbrella comes a machine learning, which can learn from the data. And deep learning is using neural networks and cognitive technology, etc., which can give you much more insights and analysis, right? In a layman's perspective, an artificial intelligence will probably just give you a very simple rule-based plus minor bit of thinking-based. Whereas a machine learning will say, based on situations, based on data, it can probably tell you. A deep learning will go much more further and say, based on object, based on rule sets, based on past behavior, whether to do certain things, not do certain things, etc. But let's talk about how these AI in a finance, the use cases are getting built up. And of course, a few of these slides are courtesy one of my mentor, late Babu Jayendran sir, who had, who was one of those chartered accountants who used to, not now, this was about 5 to 8 years back, who used to speak extensively on AI and, interesting use cases, right? Unfortunately, he's no more with us, but I still remember him whenever I read on technology and AI. Coming back. So fraud detection, right? It can help identify certain suspicious patterns, detect fraudulent behaviors. In terms of risk management, identify correct market trends, even whether these are relevant news, fake news, etc. On a lighter note, colleges were telling me that we are banning AI, especially ChatGPT. Why? Because all of their assignments and all of their homework, the AI started doing it. So I said, you do one thing. Whatever you believe the homework was done by AI, right? Or an assignment was done by AI. Anyways, they're sending you a soft copy. Copy the extract of that and send it back to the same AI. And say, did you do this? It will say, yes, I did it. Okay, you know the reason, I'll give 0 marks to that person. As simple as that. Right? So if they can use AI, you too can use AI. And I think it is not wise to ban AI, but I think we'll have to restrict the way in which we are going to use it. And anyways, I'm not going to do much of those mal effects and ill effects. I'm rather believing on the positive application. Right. Next is an investment prediction, identify market changes, and this is where one of the fund called Medallion Funds many years back was done by computer programmers and mathematicians, which gives an IRR of even now 14 to 18 odd percent, right? Since the inception. Customer service, this is something which is very interesting. Based on your user response, which you give, in Uber or Swiggy, smile face, sad face, etc. It can take reactions. It can give you certain freebies. It can give you certain things to make you feel better, right? And you have to probably use this in a banking industry, right? This is one simple use case, again, courtesy the slide from Babu Jindal sir. I probably taken this, where there are transactions which are fed into the system. It identifies which is normal, abnormal, and gives those exceptions which you further go ahead and investigate. In this case, the green transactions are acceptable, the red are not acceptable, and therefore pushed into a different era, right? Now, this is typically what the old school, and that's how AI is totally evolved. And imagine a customization in this sort of a scenario. Let's say I'm talking about a salaried person vis-a-vis a student vis-a-vis a person in a business. If you analyze all of their bank statements, right, they will have different patterns. Now, for example, a student's account, it comes through a pocket money or maybe a stipend or an intern, whatever he earns, he gets that. But then this entire funds which is there, it may or may not get reduced. It may or may not get reduced within a span of 3 days or 5 days. Whereas if you're a salaried employee and if you're having a home loan, if you have those EMIs, so maybe 100 rupees gets credited on day one, right? Within day 2 to day 3, after all your expenses, maybe it comes down to 10 rupees. So that means there's a 90% or 90 rupees is sort of deducted or moved. Now somebody can say, hey, this account is subject to some sort of an hacking or an attempt to defraud, and therefore 90 rupees has disappeared. Whereas that's not the reality. The reality is that your transaction is that way. Compare this with a friend of yours, right? He may have a different behavior, and therefore this, if it is used in a banking sectors, right, each of those customized behaviors, it is able to analyze and decide which is a fraudulent and non-fraudulent. So let's come into our own profession where we can use these AI and ML, right? So one could be to generate predictive analytics using various methods of AI, ML algorithms to generate certain outputs, right? You can use it for expense reporting, categorization, bucketing, creating trends, charts. Debt collection is very interesting thing, right? To identify outstanding debt. Can a person fail? What is the probability of he failing? Regulatory compliance, underwriting. Underwriting is a huge area where I think AI today is being used. It will evolve because today to underwrite, you need to have the risk. And the risk in most of the cases is not defined, right? Unless you have that sort of a data set. Credit scoring. Today, many of these companies are giving you loans instantly, or you are going to these e-commerce website and within few minutes or few seconds, instant loan is granted. The buy now, pay later, BNPL, right? All of these people are using this credit scoring models. I had one interesting case where one NBFC was using the help of a technology-based company which was generating within 3 minutes your scorecard based on your GST data, based on your bank statement, and based on 2-3 other things, right? So that's where they're helping them, right? Insurance policy, asset management, robots, all of these are high-level categories. But if you have to speak into pinpoint, right, it could be used for your invoice management solution. A simple example could be that that you have a recurring invoice, you have scheduled it, and this recurring invoice every 3rd or 5th or 10th of the month the payment comes, whereas it does not come for one of those months. You can go ahead and send an alert, or it can send you a message, hey, as on this date the money should have come, why don't you go check your bank. Expense auditing. You could go ahead and ask the system to audit or verify or check certain transactions, right? Give an alert. Bonus accruals where based on the incentive, based on the performance, etc., it can probably go ahead and calculate. Cash flows, giving those cash flow alerts. Hey, your expected payout is going to be so much, whereas I noticed that your bank balance has already come down. So either you go for overdraft or give an alert that you don't have sufficient balance. Doing risk assessment for projects, again, we'll see how I can show you some use cases, how RCMs can be prepared, etc. So this, my dear friends, was the first part of our conversation where I wanted to give you on what this AI is all about, right? But now it is actually evolved. We're talking about a generative AI and a lot of those fancy things. So between this and the next slide, I thought I will give you a transition of how these, because of AI, how the jobs and how all of these are getting impacted. And that is where the Future of Jobs Report 2023 is a very, very handy document. This was a report released by the World Economic Forum. I think it's been 3 or 4 days. In fact, just yesterday I was having a conversation with my mentor Rafiq sir, and he said, "Why don't you, also give a perspective on the Future of Job Reports 2023, which just was released very recently, I think 2 or 3 days back, right?" So thank you, sir, for giving that valuable tip. So the way it works is, it is a huge amount of literature, but I found two slides about India, which is very, very fancy and which is quite good. And I thought I'll speak about it. Which are those technologies which can have an impact on the job, right? And if you notice over here, the blue is basically job creator, whereas pink is basically a job displacer. So if you notice this, and of course that diamond shape is your net effect and all of those fancy stuff. When it comes to India, they believe big data analytics is going to create a fairly high percentage, 62 odd percentage of opportunities. Cybersecurity is creating 53 odd percent, right? Come down, you will find cloud computing 43%, AI 40%, right? And look at the flip side of it. AI is also going to reasonably remove certain jobs. That means displace certain jobs. I was just reading recently one of these companies, which is a home tutor based companies, which helps students to ask doubts, questions, and you, as a subscription model, people have to subscribe to it, and people used to subscribe, and whatever questions were asked, there will be tutors who will answer that. Within a span of 3 months, their revenue dipped by 90%. Why? Because everybody moved into ChatGPT. They used to ask the question to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT used to give the answers. So why will I go to that? Right? So we're talking about very, very interesting things where the magnitude and the way in which the pace in which technology is changing. Right? Of course, now you will have very interesting use cases where can ChatGPT give us the advice to my client, right? What if my client already consults ChatGPT and comes, and a lot of those fancy things which is there, we'll address that. And this is something which is very interesting, which talks about the skill reskilling focus, right? Sorry. What are the skills which we need to, look into it? And there is a need that we need to reskill ourselves by at least more than 54%. That means half of our skill set is useless in the future, right? So that is where our ability to think, and please note, analytical thinking is the first foremost thing which I believe is necessary. And this is what I tell kids, this is what I tell college students. Was ChatGPT can solve or give you some analyzed result. How do you interpret that is something which your mind has to decide. And that is where the ability of this human brain can never get replaced, my dear friends, right? Your skill set, your thought process, the way you think can never be overridden by a technology. And that is why God's gifted whatever is within our head is something unique. But having said that, can I use this technology much better to solve my problem? The answer is yes. So analytical thinking, AI, big data, creative thinking. So these are all the future important skill sets we ought to have. And those are what the World Economic Forum services. And in terms of an overall skill set, you will notice again the summary which is being there. You'll find most of these bucket under different type of skill sets, but this is what is the expectation. So given this scenario that, hey, I know what is AI, I know what the future of job is entitled to, right? Of course, this is some sort of a roles which is going to change in the next few years. The churn in the next 5 years is at least expected around 22% of the churn which you will see. That means 1/5 of the work which you are doing in the next 5 years, you are not going to be doing it in the same way, in the same fashion, because technology is going to be this, right? And this is what you notice. And here I notice very, very interesting thing, which is accounting and bookkeeping, where there could be at least 20% of churn and a good chunk of jobs disappearing, right? And data entry clerks and all of those things. Data entry clerks is something which I see the highest, close to about 32%, which will change. And the global outlook is 42%, right? So that means the adoption of AI has to happen now, right? It has to happen now, and this is where we need to get started, right? Now, can AI solve everything for me? I don't think so. Can it help you to give certain ideas? The answer is yes, right? So always think this way, and this is how I personally see. Think AI as your free intern, free article, for free, training, who will do some job, but it may not be the perfect way in which you want it. Using your skill set and ability, you make it better. And that's how I personally see it. Oh, sir, I have an AI engine which will take care of all my compliances, income tax, company law, ROC. I don't think it's possible. And even if it reads and interprets, it will fall prey to so much of ambiguity, confusion, right? The GST law says something, advance ruling says something, your income tax will say something, and I just go mad, right? But what AI can do is it can give you some first initial steps and direction and use that to make things better, right? And that's where I bring to the next part of our conversation, the era of Chat GPT. This is the buzzword which everybody is speaking. The last 4 months, any conference, any meeting, any student community, anywhere I am going, the common question is, sir, what is this Chat GPT? Is it going to take over me? Is it going to take over my job? How do I use it? Is Chat GPT relevant? We are going to be relevant. All those fear sort of questions, right? In a layman's language, a GPT is basically a simple algorithm technology, whatever you can call it, which generates an output, right? You ask a question, it is generating an output. But that output, in order to generate, it is analyzing so many different types of transactions and characters and information before it decides, right? And that's where I think that's where we need to look into it. What is GPT 3.5? What is GPT 4.5? If you still want, we'll cover that, right? Just I am a person who strictly believes on how to use technology. No doubt we need to understand the fundamentals of technology, but in this session, I'm focusing more on how to use these sort of technologies. And this is something which I'm noticing, which you will agree, right? There is a changing need. The clients are changing, the employees are changing, the regulators are changing, right? I would probably be, won't be surprised in 5 to 10 years. Your income tax return automatically is computed and an intimation, or you are expected only to accept or deny. Let's take a typical salaried employee. Everything comes from the employer, right? Today you have this what is this document? I think 26 AS, and there was another set of documents which came up, right? I'm not able to recollect the name immediately, right? So these are all things where you are having all of this information readily available with the income tax department. They're using it for their own analysis purposes and generating. Whether it gives a false positive, the probability is high, right? But it is going to evolve. Just like this kid who's saying that, why don't you give me a wireless treatment, and why don't we update? I think this is where we stand today with the era of Chat GPT, right? And what is this Chat GPT era created, right? First, there is a huge hype on AI. Maybe it is worth spending some time, but don't get the fear that it will take over me. I will just go ahead and use AI, or AI will, come into picture. No longer clients are going to come to me. No. A simple answer I'll ask you, will you trust an AI to give a medical treatment to you? Answer is no. Right? If you just say that I'm coughing, I'm having a throat pain, and use some 3-4 symptoms, right? The AI engine might say that, boss, you are actually having COVID, right? Whereas in reality, yesterday you had ice cream and you are having a sore throat, right? So there is definitely an overhype on AI, right? But having said that, is it solving problem? Yes, it is solving problem. But I think there's a huge fear and craze. I think we need to move one step back, right? Students are literally thinking, why should I study when AI can do everything, right? I agree with that. But your fundamental knowledge tomorrow, you cannot rely on somebody else. You need to have your own sense of ability and thinking, your own fundamental understanding of basics, right? An era where automation of everything is taking place, I think the shift towards AI is gradually people are accepting. And AI is entering workspace. AI is embedded into your own application softwares. I'm not even sure if you're aware, PowerPoint presentation has inbuilt AI built into it since the last 2 or 3 years, right? And today we're talking about GPT powered tools, which is overwhelming. In fact, Microsoft is coming up with a solution called Copilot. I'll speak about it a little later. How your AI based things are coming into Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. Currently, it is still at a very, very nascent stage. Probably by end of this year, we should see an update available on to a few of your licenses, right? So with that happening, what is happening into our profession? Let's look into it, right? So unfortunately, we are finding a declining relevance of traditional practice. A chat GPT era, who is the subject matter expert, right? Is chat GPT a subject matter expert? We do not know. Practice is becoming lesser attractive for newcomers. Bots are doing accounting. Talent shortage. We're having a huge amount of risks vis-a-vis the returns, right? Rising costs, shrinking fees. So all of these questions are giving me, are we the next endangered species, right? Well, I would not use the word we are being the next endangered species, as long as we are able to learn how to surf in that tide, right? And that's where using AI becomes very important, right? And therefore, let me spend some time to understand what are these AI tools and how do we explore these AI tools, right? What are these AI tools which is worthwhile to explore? And the first tool which we want to speak about is obviously ChatGPT, right? How can I not touch that? Of course, earlier ways of style of my talking was used to speak about all of those things and new conversational technologies, but today I think the hype is the first thing. Let's touch it, right? Of course, the ChatGPT era, it had this various versions, GPT-3, then came GPT 3.5, Legacy 3.5, and today we're talking about GPT-4. But of course, the GPT-4 is available on, and 3.5 is also available only for the Plus subscribers, those who have subscribed to that, right? Otherwise, you basically get what is there on the extreme left, right? It has an ability to reason. Your responses have a reasonable amount of speed, whereas is it very concise? 3.5 is less. 3.5 default is slightly more. GPT-4 is fairly more concise, right? But the speed is lesser, right? And many of them would have tried using a chat GPT. Morning it works, evening it doesn't work, because a majority of the American population, when they get connected towards the later part of the day, of course, the more number of users which is there, and therefore GPT-4 may probably, you would have noticed that we're experiencing delays and things like that. Not that it has become like the ones which we used to notice in GST website, but yes, it had its own style. So what GPT-4 brought in a word limit increase, 10 times more accurate, model was trained better, right? It can give a lot of stories, poems, creative topics, right? It can give you better and safer content, but it is not the end of it. You still get unwanted content. It can give you improvised academic performance and other things, right? So that's a fairly good set of things. So how do I use it? The first thing which we need to understand in case of a chat GPT or any of these technologies is using what is called as a prompt. I repeat, using what is called as a prompt. And what is a prompt? Understand in a layman's language, prompt is like a search which you do in Google, right? It's like a search which I do in Google, right? So let's see how this works, and I'm going to quickly, move into the live action, and I'm quickly going to take you through the chat GPT, right? Of course, those who want to log in, the first thing you just have to type is chatgpt.openai. Since I already have an account, it opens, otherwise you have to log in, right? By default, if you notice, GPT 3.5 appears. I have legacy 3.5 and GPT 4. If you remember, as I told you, in this presentation also I've made a mention, legacy 3.5 and default is what you get. Legacy and GPT-4 is available only for plus users, right? So we'll go into the default 3.5 itself to get started with, right? So if you notice in the bottom, and I'm presuming you're able to see my screen, of course you can see a host of my tabs there. We'll come to that tabs a little later. Can somebody confirm if you're able to see the chat GPT screen? Okay, so I see a yes. Thank you, Rakesh. So this is the first step of you getting into it, and here you send a message, right? And this message, the way you draft it becomes very, very important, right? Now you are a finance professional, and the way you want to use this chat GPT depends purely on how you want to use what is the use case for you, right? Let's take a simple example. You are now filing, or a new client has approached you for whom you have to do an audit, right? So you simply say, can you give me 5 points to ask a potential client before I submit my proposal? Simple question. Before I submit my proposal, I want some guidelines, right? Now, this is where I'm asking a question. It is generating the response, and do you notice that it was able to generate fairly quickly, right? Look at the question it asks. What are your specific needs and goals for the project? What is your budget for this project? What is your timeline? Have you worked in similar service provider? What are the metrics? So it gives you some 5 random questions. I'm asking the same question to a slightly evolved GPT, right? And I'm going to use GPT-4 here, and I'm going to ask the same thing. It may or may not give, and look at this. Look at the answer, what it is giving. It is generating a little slowly, and it is giving you much more better quality of response. Are you able to see the difference? This is when I'm using a GPT-4. Of course, I'm using a GPT-4 because I'm a subscribed or a paid user or whatever it is. And it gives us more relevant. And that is where this interesting slide, you can look into it, right? The reasoning and conciseness of a GPT-4 is much better. The speed comparatively is lesser, right? And whereas a 3.5 or a default 3, when I started with 3.5, speed was fairly high, right? So you're able to sense that, right? Now look at the same thing which I'm going to ask. Now, can you give me a 5-point? I'm going to change this now. I am an auditor. I'm a financial auditor. And can you give me 5 points to ask a potential client before I submit my audit proposal? I am using the same thing with slightly more clarified version, and I hit an enter. Let's see what happens. Look at this. The same chat GPT now has changed, and it has understood that you're a financial auditor. It is asking, what is your financial reporting framework? What is the gap you're using? What is a business structure? Do you have an internal control environment? Right? Do I have a prior audit experience? Now look at this beauty of this. Look at, this is where the AI has its own advantage and disadvantage, right? Now, what is an advantage or disadvantage? Let me bring this up. If you notice over here, in one of the conversations, it says, have you worked with a similar service provider? If yes, what did you like or dislike? Look at this over here. Prior audit experience. Discuss the client's prior audit experience, including significant challenges or issues. Do you notice that repetition? Do you notice that repetition? And this is where the AI model, at least the one which you are noticing, it has a predefined set of a thought process which it will tweak and ask you in this particular context. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? That means a fundamental thought concept or topic which is there, now it at least helps you to define your next step. Now, what are you going to do with this? You decide. What are you going to do with it? Is absolutely your choice, right? You could go ahead and, hey, copy this, or you could say, hey, I sort of like this response, provide feedback, or you can say, no, I didn't like this response, or whatever it is, right? So that's something which you can do. Anyways, now I'm going to use a slightly different thing, right? I'm going to the next stage. Now that you are going for a proposal stage, now I want to help draft a proposal. And this you're doing it for the first time. Now this is where I said this is an intern for you, right? Draft a audit proposal for a fintech company with the following: timeline 3 months, list of requirements, fees. Right now it is analyzing and it is giving you interesting thing in a letter format, your name, address, etc, 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 right? It's a letter. Attention, client name. Now all that you have to do is take this information, create a template out of it, right? Dear so and so, we are supposed, please to follow this, we are supposed this thing as a professional auditing firm with experience in fintech, we understand unique risk. So it's giving you a lot of stories, right? Look at this timeline. Our team will perform month 1. Did I ask it to plan this? The answer was no. It is able to do it on its own. I only gave a timeline of 3 months, right? List of requirements. This is the list of requirements. Look at this. This is a very interesting thing, right? And let me tell you, all of this, what I'm trying to show you, my dear friends, is something which I just generated now, right? It's something which is there in my mind. I'm just asking. It's more impromptu. Look at this. Your initial requirement list is ready. So your client says whatever is there, etc., etc. Right? Our audit fee for the engagement is so and so, which includes our professional service, travel, expense. Now you can decide exclusive, inclusive. Look at the beauty of it. Which means you give what contents you want, and it will draft it for you. Now, this is where, my dear friends, the technology is actually available to our disposal. Look at this enclosure also, it is saying. Okay, now you realize that, hey, I never created an audit engagement letter. Let's create an audit engagement letter, right? And what is the standard for audit engagement letter? Anybody? Audit engagement letter standard, ICA standard or SA standard? I think SA 210 or something, no? So let's ask this. Draft an audit engagement letter for I am the partner of Kenetco. We are auditing. Look at this. This is why I'm making it more concise, right? We are auditing a fintech company. Draft an engagement letter. Draft an engagement letter. Draft an engagement letter as per SA 210. Okay, so I think, yeah, so here you are giving it your firm's name. So it is understanding whatever you notice over here. We are pleased to understand the terms and objectives, whatever, all those details. Of course, here it is taking ISA 210. You can mention SA 210 of ICAI. Do you sense how it can be used now? Right now, this is just a trigger point, my dear friends. I'll bring you so many other combinations. Please bear in mind, I'm using a GPT-4, which has slightly more accurate results compared to a GPT 3.5 or a 3. You can still try it, but this is the first step. This is the first step, right? Now look at this. It gives you the entire management responsibility, objective of it. Please bear in mind, just because it give it, it doesn't mean that this is foolproof. You test it now. This is exactly what I'm trying to say. This is your freely available intern who knows something of everything or something of many things. Many times you start the work without keeping in mind the fee. Like here you can in fact ask it to create a template. It will create a template for you. Right? It is generating all of this. And on the left hand side, you can have the history of all of this conversation. Are you able to follow what I'm trying to tell? Yes, no. I think many of you are posting some questions. I'll come to all of those things. I'll come to it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Some of you have confirmed. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. Right. So you have this thing ready. Now, this is not the end of it. This is just the beginning of it. Right. Now, this is where I said, try to generate generic questions to specific questions. This is exactly what I took you through. General questions, how you can move to specific questions, give a specific objective, give an input, give a format, give a specific list of things which you need to avoid, right? You can make it more and more customized. And remember, prompting is an iterative game. You need to keep on asking more and more questions, only then you'll realize the problem. In fact, you'll not believe one of the latest interview questions which people are asking. How good are you in creating prompts for AI? And they're asking, show me. Because today, it is all about, do you have the skill set and the way in which you need to do it? I remember one of this court judgment, which when I was studying, CA Foundation or CA Inter, my sir, made a mention, CA Chandrasekhar Shetty. He made a mention that, one very nice case law. He said, a judge need not know the law, but he should know where the law is. That means he should basically be able to prepare or figure out from where the law comes. He need not know everything because the law itself is huge, right? So the same way, it is an iterative things. And this is where the importance of prompts come into picture, right? You can create multiple interesting things. And this is what an example. You can ask it to create a checklist. Here we go. So we started off the statutory audit. We're coming back to the same example. Prepare a checklist, or you can say audit program. Prepare an statutory audit program under, I'll just say statutory audit program for a fintech company. The audit areas, or I'll just say along with the audit areas. Here you go. Right? A statutory audit program, it talks about whatever the various things, and then it talks about few things: understanding entity, obtain understanding of fintech's business model operation, revenue recognition, right? It also gives you an audit program. Test a sample. Now you're doing an audit for the first time. Ask an answer or a question over here. It will help you out. Now you can say, sir, will it test the requirements under Companies Act 2023? Even 2013, beg your pardon. Even I do not know. Go give it a try. Right? Please bear in mind, always accept these results with a pinch of salt. It is not that, hey, whatever ChatGPT is generating is the answer. No. Get an idea from it and move on further. Right? Move on further. IT systems and data security, the domain which I specialize on, technology and how, security aspects, regulatory compliance. So look at this, it is giving you a fairly exhaustive things, right? I'm going to stop generating because it's going to take a good amount of time. So I will now say, can you convert the above audit program, or can you convert the above audit program into a table? You want it in Excel sheet. You're too lazy to copy and make it into Excel sheet, right? Let's see what happens. Look at this. Did you ever think of it? It is creating a ready-made table for you. BR is basically line break or something. You just have to space that, but I think that's very much doable, right? Are you able to sense this? Now I'm going to use this to the next stage. Okay, let it probably generate it for at least a couple of things. Now you just have to copy paste into Excel and send it across. But add your valuable information, add your valuable inputs. Sorry, I'm just sipping my tea. Hope all of you are okay with it while you are sipping yours. Right? Now I'm going to do a different thing. Convert the above audit program into a risk control matrix. There you go, my dear friends. Audit area, understanding the entity. Risk, inadequate understanding of fintech. Control activities, suggested procedures. Right? Revenue recognition, inaccurate revenue, incomplete revenue. Verify the appropriateness. And this is giving you a ready-made format. I hope you're able to appreciate what we are discussing. Are we going the right flow? Any questions? Right? So this is a few of those examples of those prompts, right? We spoke about a matrix, we spoke about an RCM. Now let's speak into a chart, right? Prepare a bar chart, or we can say line chart, with following information. On sales. April, you copy paste whatever your data you have, right? 100, May 150, July 35, August, and interpret the results. Let's see what it says. So this is where it is. It says, I am unable to create a visual chart with a text-based platform because this is GPT-4. GPT-5 is going to be a image-based, right? But it tells you what all information you can plot and how you can do it. It says there's a significant sales from April to May. Sales have dropped sharply, whatever. Look at this. It gives you a very interesting set of, at least some thought process for you to look into. Agree? Can we upload Excel sheet for analysis? Girish, that's a very good question. I'm trying to do it currently in the Chat GPT 4. You cannot do it. Wait for Chat GPT 5 to come in. Probably you can bring it up. Probably you can bring it up. I'm using the word probability because even I'm not sure how the GPT 5 is going to come up, but GPT 5 is going to take a little longer. The reason is because now globally, people want to pause the developments in AI at least for 6 months. And this is what the godfather of AI, the gentleman who just quit, you can just Google search that. When he quit Google 2 days back, he said that I think we need to stop the pace at which AI is evolving until we have kept our checks and balances in place before we hit it. Right? So that's something which he has mentioned. But anyways, probably we could use it over a point in time. Any other questions which is quickly coming up in the context? Generic questions, I'll take it towards the end. Anything else you want me to ask ChatGPT to do? Just a trial and error experiment, right? We're all learning together. Think at all? Let's see if I can take some actual Excel data and analyze. Tell me the bar chart with below information and analyze the. So I'm just giving some information here. Let's see how it works. It says it cannot analyze the charts because for obvious reason, which I said. Just create a bar chart, consumption, x-axis. You have plotted the data. So here it is saying what is the range of consumption for each of them. This is a very interesting analysis. Right? So it can do a lot of these fancy stuff. That's basically what I'm trying to, articulate. What more interesting things I had done? This was one sales bar chart which it created. Okay, let's do this. Create a table comparing the top 50, comparing the Sensex, comparing the companies forming part of Sensex along with their profits and key numbers. I'm not sure whether it is going to do, but it is going to do. Interesting. Oh my goodness. Here you go, here you go, here you go. Right? So are we ready for a lot of magic which is going to create? I'm going to show this in Excel also a little later, but yes. Oh, this was a bar chart, I think, which we created. I think you could do a small bar chart. It gives you those asterisks and it says asterisk is basically the bar or whatever it is, right? I keep playing around with this and that's how I learn, right? But yes, that's the sense of what I wanted to give you a perspective. You decide and use it in more use cases. But on a lighter side, coming back to my presentation, right? Do not forget one very important thing. You may have pivot tables, you may have access reports, you may have interactive dashboards, you may have AI, but at the end of the day, Excel is still the king, right? So you need to know how you could use these sort of prompt tools on Excel, etc. That is also something which we'll cover, and I'll speak specifically on Excel and AI functions within Excel. Now comes to a very interesting segment. Is ChatGPT the only thing? No. Many of us don't even know there are hundreds and thousands of tools just developed based on ChatGPT. In fact, you'll get frustrated by seeing the number of tools. So many tools are there, but I thought certain specific things and very powerful for our profession. I'm going to take you through it. And quickly jumping back to the screen. One of my personal favorite, Grammarly, right? A beautiful piece of document, a beautiful piece of software which can give you grammar suggestions. It can give you a lot of interesting things. It can give you score of your information, a lot of those things, and it's very handy for me because I write a lot of articles, I do a lot of content, I create content and things like that, right? So this becomes very easy for me. Let's take a very simple example, right? I am going to take something from ChatGPT itself, right? I'm going to ask ChatGPT to, hey, give me a 100-word article on future of finance. It is going to give them, some interesting things, right? I'm going to take this from ChatGPT, right? And let's presume I'm going to use this for doing it. Now, what is it that I'm going to do here? Am I writing academic? Is it an essay? What is the format I want? Am I writing for business? What is the intent? I'm intending to tell a story. The audience are expert. Formality is very formal, right? And I'm going to say, hey, show goals when I start a document, and I'm say done, right? And now it is giving me some information and it says rewrite the sentence, rewrite in active voice. I said, okay, go ahead and rewrite. It says rewrite for clarity. I'm saying, go ahead, right? I'm asking that to do certain things which is going to save so much of my time. And mind you, this Grammarly add-on is available onto your mail, onto your Word, onto your whatever typing window, right? And this is something which is very interesting. Overall score says 99%. Great. Now I can download a PDF report if you want to. Goals, Grammarly. Now I can go ahead and say AI generation and say, it can probably say pick out the main point, right? It just picks up the main point on something, make it persuasive, right? So these are all very interesting things, right? So I'm just giving you an example, right? So this is something which we are looking into, how you could make much better, how you could write much better, right? And sir, is there an option to upload a document and do proofread? Yes, you have an option. You could upload and you could do it, right? So that is where Grammarly is. Quickly flipping sites is another interesting tool called Notion, Notion, Notion. I think the website is notion.so. I think it was notion.io or something. What you could do is just type a backslash, right? And it gives you multiple options over here. Right? It's basically a notepad. It's a notepad, right? It could do multiple things over here. Table view, broad view, gallery view. It's basically a notepad with slightly much more powerful features, right? So let's say my first note of using AI, right? And here, press space for AI commands and I say, hey, can you write a post on how CAs can use AI? All right, this is quite similar to ChatGPT based technology, but it is using an AI, it is writing. It may take a much longer time, I do not know, right? And here it is. As a CA, you can use AI for the following, right? Now I feel that this is not enough, make it longer. It is writing a little longer. As a chartered accountant, your work life involves speaking of AI, whatever, right? Then I say, hey, I just say done, right? This note is ready. And now I say, hey, summarize. It will just give me a summary of this, right? And it can do much more things, right? I would leave it this to for you to go ahead and explain. Then you have another interesting tool that's called Quillbot. Now, what a Quillbot does is it's called as a paraphraser. It takes information, makes it better. Now, the same thing which I posted over here, right? Quite similar to Grammarly or whatever, right? I just pasted it and I'm asking it to paraphrase, right? And I'm asking it to paraphrase in a shortened form. It will paraphrase and give me, right? I want this, it is paraphrasing by the way, right? Here it is. I want it to be expanded. I want to make it creative and I can increase the extent of synonyms, more changes, but less accurate, right? So a huge set of things, which is again possible, right? It gives you some statistics on what all you have done, what all changes, and fancy stuff, right? So this is on build. The next thing, which is very, very interesting for finance professionals, is finchat.io. This is something like a chat GPT for finance professionals. Now, the beauty of it is it has more than 750 stock companies which you can ask the company the details of. Say, for example, you are analyzing certain details of Reliance or let's say Apple or whatever it is, right? Of course, this predominantly US based setup. It'll take, whatever it is, right? So I can say summarize, or rather, sorry, I will come here and ask the question. Summarize the results of TCS and give me an overview of 2023 expectations. Right? Let's see what it is giving me. There you go. It says TCS has shown consistent growth in BFSI, whatever those details, whatever growth, profit, it is generating all of this information, right? 2025, the company is expected to have an annual revenue of 2.25 trillion, EPS of 129. In Cognizant Technology, whatever, right? It is doing all of those things, but suddenly why Cognizant came in, even I'm not sure, but that is where it is, right? And here you have some information, you have some graphs, right? Unfortunately, this has gone to TCNS retail. So I think you'll have to be very specific when you're asking those questions. I hope you're able to get it, right? It is also giving some fancy report of CTS. So it is understanding TCS and CTS as the same thing. That's why you're finding it. But I'm just giving you a perspective of how this could be used, right? And version 1.32 is available for FinChat Plus users. So basically ChatGPT of finance professionals, right? Or I can ask him if I'm doing a valuation job and you want to know, India profit numbers, right? So I can say calculate the beta for Sensex companies and for Nifty companies in the last 3 years and give me, let's go simple. So it's just calculating the beta for Sensex companies and Nifty companies. Let's see what it is doing. Right? So now here it says, hey, I'm sorry, but I cannot calculate beta because it's a measure of stock volatility. However, I'm providing you the necessary data so that you can calculate by yourself. Right? So this is where issues, challenges will keep on coming, and this is where technology will slowly evolve. But at least from a company perspective, you will be able to get some interesting things, right? Let's quickly go into a very interesting tool which I came across recently. I think yesterday when I was doing some research, it's called Avoma 3.0. Interesting thing, Avoma, if you subscribe to it, you need not write minutes of the meeting at all. It will convert every conversation of yours into minutes, action items, etc. And here it is. Human-like meeting notes generated by AI. Focus on the conversation. Don't miss out the details. Avoma AI takes human-like detailed notes for you. For every meeting, every function, every use case, who are the users, who has spoken, what they have done, it gives you the conversation. It will give you a transcript, right? It can tell you when you have to do the next meeting. Are you okay with it? Create a new one-on-one meetings. A lot of fancy stuff. Lot of fancy stuff. Worthy to explore. Worthy to explore, right? Next is durable.co. This is a company which can build a website in 30 seconds with AI. You heard it right, 30 seconds with AI. So just say get started. I'm not sure, it may ask you to log in, but yes, get started. What is the type of business? I'm going to say chartered accountant. By the way, look at this. I blocked the access, but still it's identified that I'm from Bangalore. Enter your business, Scan and Co. Right? It is picking color palette. It is doing all these fancy stuff. It is giving the layout, right? And I'm not sure if 30 seconds is completed, but at least I can see something here. So it's adding a lot of interesting stuff. So if you thought that I have to create a website and it requires a lot of money, all of those fancy stuff, I think things are changing. My dear friends, things are changing so very rapidly, right? So it is giving you all of this information. You just have to go make the edits. So it's creating a beautiful template, right? Are we ready to see it? Here you go. Chartered accountants in Bangalore, Canonco is chartered accountant. We offer a range of financial services, right? It gives you some fancy stuff. What are the features? Meet the team. I think this is essentially how any of these things would be based out of, right? And this is where it is. Now you go click on customize. Now it will say, boss, subscribe. Right? So you need to pay and all of those things. But at least it is giving you that initial feed. By the way, you can ask ChatGPT also, it will give you the entire code, you copy paste that code. That's also an option. There's again another query kitty. There's another interesting tool which again does ChatGPT based conversations, questions, etc. Barely.io AI. There's a very interesting thing which I came across. What you can do is it can summarize a large document for you, a large PDF you upload. It can summarize. It can create images. You upload a rental agreement and you want it to summarize. It can do that for you. You upload a YouTube video, it can summarize that and give it for you, all of those fancy stuff which is there and things like that, right? So the list is endless. That's exactly what I'm trying to convey. This is just a start of this intelligent era, right? The list is endless. So a few other tools which could probably enable us as chartered accountants. And getting back to the PPT, let me know if you're able to see the PPT. Can somebody confirm? Because I'm just, can it create specific legal agreements? Yes. Girish, why don't you give it a try? It is possible. You want to develop a joint development agreement, do it, but I cannot promise whether it will give you what is necessary. Right? Otherwise, advocates will say, boss, what are you speaking of? Right? It can help you out. Question is how you want to use it. Right? So these are a few example accounting tools, Wik.ai, Smack, etc., which is from an accounting perspective, it is slowly evolving. Our own India-based company, which uses AI currently, quite good if you ask me. Zoho, the Zoho suite of products, they have what is called Zia. And that Zia is basically helping you to analyze. It's an AI-powered assistant. It can do some basic transactions, etc. These are a few of those disrupting factors which are embedded, and coupled with AI, it only becomes much better. Features like online payments, follow-ups. So there are embedded AI features within this, right? And in future, you will not even realize that AI is an additional thing which you have to ask. So just like if you buy a smartphone, you believe that it has a camera, Bluetooth, you know, what else? A microphone, a capability of few things, right? So the same way applications in future, you believe that they have embedded AI. This is a powerful analytics tool, data analytics tool, which is called as mindbridge.ai, right? And it's fairly powerful, which can do a lot of fancy stuff over a very quick and short span of time. But again, the Indian, it's again a US based setup. The Indian version or an Indian equivalent is not there. A little expensive currently, but yes, I think it over a point of time it will evolve to become much better. I came across a very interesting tool very recently, and I'll probably go into that, and that's called Data Snipper. Right? This is something which is an intelligent audit platform built on Excel. Right? What it will do is, I'll see if I have a sample use case. It automates your test of details. All that you have to do, yeah, here it is. You upload a PDF, right? It will go see what are the key information in your PDF, and you have an Excel sheet which has key information. You go and validate those numbers and define matching document. It matches all the rows. So you have a sales file and you want to verify which are those PDF. Upload the PDF. It will match whether these 10 or 15 things are matching, right? You can accelerate your test of controls. You can accelerate your walkthrough documents, like what you see on the left hand side. Compare the previous year and the current year. Upload last year financial statements, this year financial statements. Identify the difference, right? A lot of those fancy stuff it is actually able to do. That's called datasnipper.com. You can go ahead and use that. A few other, again, accounting tools, Roger, Bill.com. Again, all these things are US based or European based, Indian based, is evolving. I wouldn't be surprised probably in few months down the line you get much more. Coming back to our Microsoft PowerPoint suite, right? Your PowerPoint has got a very powerful function called design ideas. I'm not sure how many of them have actually tried to explore that. Let me see if I can bring up a PowerPoint slide quickly. And let's see how well that works. Okay. So I'm going to click on a presentation on AI use cases, right? And I'm going to go to this option which has design, and I'm going to click on designer. I hope you're able to see my screen. Yeah, in the right hand side, do you see various designing options? Right. So I'm just saying AI use case, right? It's creating a beautiful template. Use cases, font, everything is decided, right? Automation, analysis, customization. What else? Speed, accuracy. I'm just typing some random stuff, right? I go back to designer tab and I say, hey, design this for me. Look at this. It gives me various sort of analysis, and I can just use this color combination is good and just move on, right? So this is the designer tab which is embedded within a PowerPoint, right? Yes, Girish, you are absolutely right. As I keep on saying, this is just a start. What we do, how we are going to evolve is something which we'll decide. And by the way, I think since last 3 years or 4 years, all of my presentations are all high level, at least designed through AI. I use this design ideas, right? Live captions, quick starters are examples. Next is Excel. How can we forget Excel? How can we forget Excel? And I'm going to bring up an Excel sheet. And here you go. An Excel sheet, right? So I have a very simple data over here, and I'm asking a standard way of analyzing is take this entire data and analyze. I'm going to use an simple approach here. I just go to data tab and I say data analysis. In the right hand side, it will analyze this data. I'm sorry, not the data analysis. I go to the home tab and I say analyze data. It is analyzing the data and it's giving me some trends. So it gives me a daily consumption pattern. It gives me a consumption history, which probably I would have never known, right? Look at the way in which the bar chart, it is showing a repeated pattern. It gives me the frequency of consumption. Very interesting. Look at this. It gives me a frequency of consumption, high, low, medium. And this is not about it, right? I can ask questions about my data. This is my favorite, right? Percentage of total consumption of each chapter. Great. What day of the week is the highest consumption? Let's see. It says I am not able to analyze because it's not able to convert the date into the day, right? Maybe what day of the week it is basically shows the highest consumption where date is the week of May 1st. So it is probably saying the May 1st is basically what it is, right? Now I'm going to slightly change this and I'm going to say here day is equal to text. By the way, ChatGPT can give you formulas also. DDD DDD, right? And I go back to the home tab and I go to analyze. Let's see, right? What day of the week has the highest consumption? Right? Top date where the week is May, where the date. So I think I have to choose the word day. What day has the highest consumption, and it says Saturday. There you go. It is not able to understand day of the week, but it is able to understand the field called day, right? Top day by average consumption, top day by total consumption, right? I can say sort monthly, oh sorry, sort consumption based on date and chapter. Or I'll simply say based on date. So it gives me a beautiful chart, right? And instead of based on day, I can say based on chapter, right? So it gives me all these prompts, right? So this is where you can use. Another interesting feature which you can use is flash fill, right? You can probably say, I want to extract only the year over here, right? I can just say, or I can say month. I can say 03. Of course, I have to change the format first. I will just go and say general, right? And then I will say 8. And we'll just do Control E. Automatically, it fills the data, right? And now I can say 3 is March, 8 is August. Let's see if it can auto-analyze. No, it is not able to see a pattern. This is where the existing mechanism fails, and therefore I go into a newer mechanism of the GPT era sorts, right? So month description. Now what I can do, go to ChatGPT, give me Excel formula to say 3 is March, 8 is August. I don't know whether it's going to help me out, but let me see. So here it is. Over. Take this, copy paste, come back here. I don't know if it's going to work, but definitely let's see this, right? So I'm going to say C2. There you go. It solved my problem, right? And now I analyze this again. Go back to Home tab, analyze the data. I'm not sure if so. I'm not even sure if you are aware of what formula to use earlier, right? Now we have everything ready. Ask a question about data. Monthly consumption. There you go. Right? By chapter. It gives me fancy pivot tables. I can decide how I want to use it, interpret it, whatnot, right? I could just use this and push it somewhere else. Choice is mine. Coming back to my presentation, Word has a feature of dictation, read aloud, resume assistant, Outlook has got email reader, scheduler, etc. All of those things are mine. But here comes the big daddy. What is this big daddy? Copilot. Copilot. And Copilot is a chat GPT enabled add-on which is coming on to Microsoft Office. And let's see how it's going to look like. Look at this. Give a product announcement based on this Word file. And this is what, my dear friends, we are looking at. If you thought this was not enough, let's look into Copilot in Excel. So this is data. Give me some trends. Here's the trend. My goodness, this is what I'm referring to. So all of your analytical tools, your add-on tools are now going to rest with AI coming into mainstream. Look at this. Create a model. Those of you into valuation, here is your model. Right? So that's where it is. And I think we spoke about ChatGPT. These are a few examples of AI-based technologies which are there, which is scaling, right? Which is having a huge use cases, right? So since we are now coming to the last few minutes, right? So I thought I'll speak to you about, now that we have all of these interesting technologies, what is it for me? How do I gear up for this challenge? Right? So this is where I think we need to understand. Identify the need. Remember, technology is used for solving problems, but you have to understand what the problem is. Divide the problems into steps. Get into very small things and then go for it. So for example, you felt that you want to write a macro, go to ChatGPT, ask it to write a macro, put it into Excel, see how it works. But bear in mind, do not commit that without multiple testing exploration, right? Because you are also doing trial and error. You cannot commit it. And imagine you send it to a client and client interprets it something differently. Dangerous, right? So explore and research, test before you commit. Very, very important. Test it adequately before you commit. Develop standard process, SOPs, measure the results, give it to somebody. You first experiment it and then move on to the next. Otherwise, you think, okay, let this come, then we'll speak about it. You'll always be thinking that, right? In our own office, there are so many things we can automate. Payroll, timesheet, invoice, data reconciliation, document, this is just a few examples, right? Now see whether any of these automation, what we can do in our offices, can we use AI into it? Can we use these technologies? Can we use this sort of a setup? How can I make it better? And that's what we are looking at. Let me remind you, the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest opportunities. Take AI as an opportunity. Take this as an area which you can reskill, upskill, look forward for newer things, and see how you could become better at this. On that note, a quick perspective of us. We are Ken & Co, a firm based out of Bangalore, predominantly specializing into risk, governance, and technology. We speak about audits, we speak about technology audits, we do risk assessments, etc., ISO, privacy law, all of these fancy stuff in the technology, and found it very fascinating. And we are only continuing to see how these things are built. Personally, in our office, we do use AI. Of course, our colleagues use it little limited. I use extensively. You would have realized this. But I am very, very cautious of the output it generates, and I go through it word by word, right? So you need to be sure of that. And these are a few of those things which we do in the technology landscape, because many of them keep on asking, sir, what is it that we can do in technology? What are the services we can render, right? So this is where it is. Thank you so much for being a patient audience. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. These are my contact coordinates, details. That's an NGO of where I regularly contribute. I was a very integral part of it, a former president, secretary of CAPS Foundation. Now I'm associated with that, where I do a lot of charitable work. Of course, not directly, indirectly. The team does it, and I support them with thoughts and ideas and funding, etc. Right? Feel free to ask your questions, clarifications. Should you feel that we have to unmute you, happy to have those sort of conversations. I see a few questions in the Q&A window. Let me quickly take it up. How can AI help in tax audit? I think we can write those prompts. You can ask those questions, prepare checklists, right? How it helps IT department in concealed income. Venkatachalam is asking this question. There are multiple methods because it is just not the ChatGPT I can use it, right? It is purely based on the machine learning algorithm, the analysis which it can build. the data which is correlated, collected, a combination of all of those. So it can go ahead and do that. An example is an image, a social media post. I'll tell you latest thing which they are actually considering. If you are saying that last year you have not traveled, or you have too much of foreign expenditure or whatever, right? They're going to your social media and actually searching it and identifying what your posts are, right? So a correlation of those. While using AI, how do I maintain confidentiality? There's a big area of concern. You can, to a very limited extent, only maintain confidentiality, but that's why most of these chat GPT prompts, they say that do not share confidential information with us. Because if you share confidential information, this entire information, whatever you're typing to AI engine, can be read by the users, right? So therefore, to that extent, there is always a risk. Whether AI helps to audit internal financial controls, Mrinal, I just showed you an example of how a risk control matrix can be prepared. Go ahead and use it. What is the source of information for OpenAI, ChatGPT? Is it like a search engine like Google? Yes, you could say to some extent. That is one of the sources. It collects from a lot of data which is being fed into that. Mrinal, if your questions are on CPE, you can probably direct it to the organizers. Whether AI gives scope for compliance for peer reviews, yes. I'm not sure what you're referring to from a peer review, but definitely you can use AI to write those prompts, etc. Whatever we have spoken of, those could be a good area to get started. What are the differences between audit tools and AI? Audit tool is simply put, I think we have explained this already. I don't want to get into too much of detail, but I think audit tool is one of the mechanism to achieve it. How the tool works, powered by AI, can do wonders. Right. So I think I've answered most of the questions. If there is anything which we want to take up, happy to do it. We have another 5 minutes or so. Otherwise, we could wrap up the show. Any questions? Are you excited to use AI into your space? Right? Interesting
Obviously,
times.
after your session, everyone will be excited to use it, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Comments
So
are
great, Raghunath ji. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's the time we have to go ahead and start exploring, start using it. Options are available, tools are available. Use it in the way it actually triggers. I see a question. What departments of CA are at risk by AI? There is nothing called a department of which risk, right? Anything which is repeatable is something which AI tries to automate, right? So see which areas which you are repeatedly doing the same process, which is mundane, which is repetitive, etc. I think that's where it is. Thank you, Mrinal. Glad that you liked it. And I always believe in bringing practical and value addition into the actual use case. And I experiment whatever I do in the session much before I have used it hands-on, and only then I give you a heads up on it. Right? Thank you so much. Over to the organizers.
Yeah. So members, thank you so much for your active participation, and also on behalf of all the members and behalf of entire managing committee, I thank the speaker of today's program, Narasimhan Elangovan sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Let's be in the physical world and be generative more on the technology side. Thank you.
Yes.
I request the secretary to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Yes, sir. Wow, what a fantabulous session. Before formal vote of thanks, I would like to announce a couple of physical programs at our CA Institute. We have a one-day workshop on cooperative society audit at Vasant Nagar branch on 6th May 2023. And we have another breakfast meeting on adoption of technology in small and medium-sized CA firms on 13th May by CABP Sachin Kumar sir. And we have one-day seminar on charitable trust at Vasant Nagar again on 20th May 2023. And one of the question asked is we have not got CP credit. So only 4 hours of structured CPE will be you'll be getting by attending virtual seminar. So kindly note the same thing. Yeah, and members, that was an excellent session by CA Elangovan sir. Needs a round of applause. Whenever I have attended any technology related sessions, either through ICAI or ISACA, CA Narsimhan Elangovan would be a speaker for sure. That comes only by passion about the subject. Of course, the expertise. That was a marvelous session, sir. On behalf of members present here and the managing committee members of Bangalore branch, especially CA Pramodar Hegde, Vice Chairman, and CA Divya S, Chairperson, who had thought of this particular program. Fantastic program. Thank you, ma'am. I thank CA Narsimhan Elangovan for his valuable time in deliberating on the subject. Thank you, sir, for that support for Bangalore branch. I thank you once again. I thank all the members who have supported us in this program. I request all of you to keep supporting us in our future programs also. I once again thank all the managing committee members and keep supporting us. I, CA Manjunath Mallur, Secretary of Bangalore branch, sign off for the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.